You know that feeling, right? That intense craving for something sweet? Maybe you've even joked, I'm a total chocoholic, or I'm just completely hooked on sugar. So many of us feel this way, and it brings up a really, really big question. I mean, we see it everywhere, don't we? Those flashy headlines that say sugar lights up your brain just like cocaine. It sounds pretty scary, but is there any truth to it? Well, today we're going to break down one of the biggest myths in nutrition and figure out what's really going on inside our heads. All right, so to really get to the bottom of this, we've got to go back to the beginning. Where did this whole powerful idea of sugar addiction even come from? Well, you might be surprised to learn it didn't really start with human brain science at all. It was kind of the perfect storm of a few different things. First, you've got those super dramatic media headlines, the ones designed to grab your attention. Then there were these studies done on rats that were stressed out and deprived of food. And yeah, they would binge on sugar. And finally, you mix in our own cultural stories about comfort food. All that together, it created this myth that just spread like wildfire. And right there is the crucial flaw in all that early evidence. I mean, the conditions in those rat studies, constant stress and starvation, that's not how most of us live and eat. Our brains, our choices, our whole world, it's just way, way more complex than that. Okay, so let's dive into what addiction actually is. Because to properly check out this claim about sugar, we need a real scientific definition. Otherwise, we're just talking about feelings, not facts. In the clinical world, addiction isn't just a really strong craving. It's a serious disorder. And the key words to pay attention to here are compulsive and despite harmful consequences. That sets a really, really high bar. So what do doctors and scientists look for when they diagnose a true addiction? Well, they have this checklist, basically. They look for these 4 big things. First, tolerance. That's needing more and more of something to get the same feeling. Then withdrawal, where you get physically sick without it. A real loss of control. And finally, using compulsively, even when it's wrecking your life. So the big question is, does sugar actually tick any of these boxes? All right, now for the fun part, let's look at what's actually happening inside your brain. We're going to jump into the neuroscience to see if sugar's effect really meets the criteria for an addictive drug. So when you eat something sweet, like a cookie, your brain releases a chemical called dopamine. It gets called the pleasure chemical, but it's really more of a motivation chemical. It makes you feel good, and more importantly, it encourages your brain to remember that activity and do it again. And here's the key. This is a completely normal, totally healthy response. And you know what? It's not just sugar. Your brain releases that same dopamine when you listen to your favorite song, or laugh really hard with friends, or even when you pet a dog. Eating carbs like bread and pasta does it too. Sugar is just one tiny piece of a huge spectrum of normal, everyday pleasures our brains are built to enjoy. And this, right here, is probably the most critical point of all. Just look at the scale of this thing. Eating sugar might boost your dopamine levels by about 50%. And yeah, that feels good. But now compare that to an actual addictive drug. Nicotine, that spikes it by 200%. Cocaine, a massive 350% surge. They're not even in the same league. It's not just a difference in amount, it's a completely different kind of effect. So the brain science here is pretty darn clear. That dopamine response you get from sugar, it's just not powerful enough to create a true chemical dependency. It doesn't hijack your brain's reward system the way that drugs of abuse do. It triggers pleasure, sure, but that's a world away from creating a chemical addiction. Okay, so if it's not a chemical addiction, then why on earth does it feel so addictive? Why do so many of us feel like we have zero willpower when we see a box of donuts? Well, this next part is the real key to understanding your own relationship with food. And here it is. This is the big aha moment. What we're actually dealing with here isn't a chemical addiction. It's a behavioral dependence. See, with a chemical addiction, the substance literally rewires your brain chemistry. But with a behavioral dependence, it's all about a super reinforced habit loop that's driven by your emotions, your surroundings, and your daily triggers. The solution isn't a detox. It's building new habits. So let's get real. You're not actually addicted to the chemical makeup of sugar. When you find yourself reaching for that candy bar, you're usually responding to something totally different. Maybe you're stressed out from work, or you're just exhausted because you didn't get enough sleep. Or maybe you're just looking for a little emotional comfort. Over time, that becomes a really deep habit. The sugar, it's just the tool you've learned to use to cope. Okay, so let's pull all of this together.
let's get to a final, clear verdict that separates what the science actually says from all those dramatic headlines.
So let's just say it, plain and simple. Based on everything we know from neuroscience and the actual definition of addiction, sugar does not meet the criteria. It doesn't hijack your brain chemistry like truly addictive substances do. That comparison to cocaine, it's a myth. But, and this is a really, really big but, that does not mean your struggle isn't real. Sugar can absolutely create incredibly powerful behavioral patterns. You know, that whole cycle of using it for comfort, the binging that comes after you try to restrict it, those deep-seated reward habits, all of that feels a lot like an addiction, and it can be just as difficult to break. So what's the big takeaway here? It's really all about this distinction. Realizing that you're not fighting a chemical dependency on a drug, but instead, you're working on a behavioral pattern, well, that's incredibly empowering. It shifts your focus away from thinking you need to detox and toward understanding your own triggers and building newer, healthier habits. And honestly, knowing the difference is the very first step to actually getting control.